Hi, today I want to share some updates about some little improvements we did on our system to handle migration pipelines. But before that, I want to spend a little time to discuss about the philosophy behind that. And, you know, as a young engineer, I always like to do new things, always start a new project, a new greenfield project, starting from scratch, coming up with a big ideas. And while I was working on that, I was getting excited by something else. And I would always want to jump on something new, something where I could prove my design skills. Now, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but now I'm understanding the fascination of improving and refining things, getting solutions that uh, maybe have been proven quite a few times, but looking at them and say, oh, how can I refine them? How can I make this a little more solid? How can I make it a little more beautiful? How can I improve some little artifacts? How can I make some process a little more clear or little more robust? And how can I make things a little more obvious and boring and clear to everybody to look at them? And, you know, I think it's something that I value because I realized that earlier when I was jumping from solution to solution, from technology to technology, I was exploring things at a shallow level. Well, now I like to go deeper and make things as good as they can possibly be. Not only by spending some time, by looking at tiny details and improving things every little day, then you can get some results that other, no matter how smart, can get if they dedicate 1 week on something, they get bored, start working on something else. So, uh, some improvements on the pipelines are some efforts that we did to make the configuration more clear and obvious, even for people who are a little bit less technical. So, for example, this is how we can configure a very simple pipeline to migrate from RPG to Python, or better. At this stage, we are only defining some steps, the steps that cover loading, parsing, and enriching. And we can define the structure. Maybe this could be a configuration that we use while we analyze a project, while we perform the initial assessment, what we call the migration blueprint. Later on, if the clients agree to move forward with the actual migration, then at that time, we will look at this and we will add some steps for the actual transformation, code generation, unloading the generated code, and so on. So we will start with a configuration that is simple during the migration blueprint, and we will complete it during the migration code graph. Now, given this configuration, I can start my project. Now, this is a toy example, so it's pretty simple. We have a couple of steps. We can see what will happen. The load step will start from nothing, load the code and produce the snapshot. The parsing step will take the output of the first step and produce a new snapshot, the snapshot one. So we can see behind the scene what is the actual command invoked for the first pipeline. We can see the details log about what is happening, the result, so the load step completed in 3.66 seconds. Then we move to the parse step and we can see what happens. And in the end, our simple pipeline for this example is completed, and anybody looking at this has a clear idea of what is going on. And so, spending some time in making things a little more clear, a little more obvious, maybe adding a little message so that this is more usable, even if I'm sharing these, sharing the screen in a meeting or sending a screenshot. Everything is reasonably clear and understandable, of course, depending on the kind of stakeholders, the kind of backgrounds they have. So yeah, it's this process of consistently refining things. I think it's getting, it's giving me satisfaction. It feels a little bit like working with bonsais. Yeah, and that's it for today. I hope it makes sense. And as always, if you have ideas, comments, suggestions, and so on, please let me know. I'm always happy to hear any feedback. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.